What's going on, guys? Today we have an exercise. So we'll be writing a greet function that greets a person based on the period of the day, whether it is morning, afternoon, or evening. Now stick with me because we will be looking at different solutions and talking about each specific solution. Let's take a look at the code and look at solution number 1. Okay, so as you can see here, this is solution number 1. It says greet, that's the name of the function, and we'll be taking in a period as an argument. And this is simple. We'll just say if period is equal to morning, then console.log good morning. And then you can see that we're repeating the same thing every time we check on the period. This function is simple. This is solution number 1. But as we get more periods, we will start to kind of hate this solution. Or maybe as we keep writing more code, we will kind of start to hate this solution. So if you take a look, we are repeating the period every time. We are even repeating the if statements here. We are repeating period, period, period. And this can be a little bit of a hassle. Also, like if we had a lot of code within this if statement or these if statements, we will not be liking this solution at all. Okay, so use this solution when it is very simple code that you are writing. But you can make this a little bit better. So let's take a look at solution number 2. Okay, I will just comment it out. Well, as you can see, solution number 2 changes from if statements to switch statements. And the reason why we did this is because in the first solution, we were checking the period every single time. And now we're just switching on the period one time, and then for each case, whether it is morning, afternoon, we are doing something. And this is kind of okay, but still I don't necessarily like this syntax. And not only that I don't necessarily like this syntax, but switch statements can be a little bit of a problem. And not because your code implementation is wrong, just sometimes you can forget to put a break statement, for example, here. If you forget to do this, this switch statement might behave in a completely different way. Also, you will be having code inside the case right here. If you want, there's a way. If you're writing a lot of code, you can just extract this out and pull it out, put it somewhere, make a function, and just call it. Okay, so now let's move on to the third and my favorite solution on how to do this. It doesn't use if statements. This is kind of a declarative approach to doing things. The first and second solution uses procedural programming. If you want, you can comment down below. We could talk about the differences between different programming paradigms, but this video is not necessarily about that. So we'll just be checking out the third and final solution. So as you can see here, we have the function called greet. I'll just rename it greet. And what I will do here is very important. Well, check this out. I have an object that is storing functions, different greet functions. Okay, you can see that morning, the property called morning, is mapped to a function called morning greet, and this function is all the way up here. What it does, it consoles.log good morning. It's the same thing as the other, but I have different types of greetings that I want to greet to my users or maybe to whoever I'm sending a greeting to. And then down here, I declared a variable. I extract the function based on the period. So if you give me morning here, period will be morning, and then I will get this function. And then if you give me afternoon or evening, then period will be evening or afternoon, and then I will get either one of these functions. Now you have to have this or and then assign it to an empty function, because I expect greet period, this variable, to be a function. And if I call it and it's not a function, our code will produce an error. There's also like another way you could do this. Maybe you could say something like this, use an if statement. I just didn't want to do that because it's way easier to just assign it a function if it's undefined. Whenever you pass me a period that is not either of these properties, then I will just assign it a function without using an if statement to check if the greet period is undefined, then assigning it a function. So This is very, very, very smart. This is a very smart solution. And why is it a smart solution? Well, if, for example, in our code later we just want to specifically call the morning greet, we can just use it. We don't need to call greet and then pass it period, because this function does exactly what its name implies. It always does the same thing. It's predictable. And yeah, I also prefer to use objects instead of if statements. And the reason being, this is kind of a declarative approach. I am telling my program that I know exactly what's going on instead of checking. Because when you use if statements, you are saying you don't know what the period will be. So you will be checking for every period, if the value is morning, if it's afternoon, and then if it's something else that you don't expect, then you want to do something else. Just maybe don't do nothing. But what I'm saying here is that I know exactly what's going on by saying that the morning property, every time you pass me a period that is morning, I will just call this function. And every time you pass me a period that is afternoon, I will call this function. And if you pass me a period that I don't recognize, I will assign it an empty function and it won't do nothing. So this is very predictable code, and it's also like very easy and simple to really grasp, understand also. This code is also kind of extensible. For example, if I wanted to add another value here, I will just map it here and then create a brand new function and then call it. This is a very, very robust solution that will work predictably, and it will be very easy to extend and easy to change and also maintain. Okay, we're at the end of the video, guys. This is all I wanted to talk about in this video. And the reason why I actually made this video, even though it's kind of very, very simple, is I'm planning to make a React video where I will be making a component, and this approach kind of will be very necessary because we want to write code that is predictable. We want to write good code, and if we use good practices, then we'll make it less painful and we will love code even more. Code is beautiful. Look at it. Like, it's very simple, very predictable. Anyone can literally read this because they see that there's different functions for doing everything. This is kind of using polymorphism. I'm not sure if polymorphic functions is a word, but I would like to think of this as a polymorphic way of writing functions. You have different functions that do different things, but at the same time they're similar. If you look at these three functions, they all do the same thing. They greet someone, but they greet them in different ways.